Stefan Dohr from Berlin, I believe. Stefan, I've known Stefan for many, many years, actually longer than he probably remembers. And Stefan Dohr is the king of the horn globally. Stefan is, among other duties, the principal horn of the Berliner Philharmoniker, which is probably the best prestigious position in the world for horns. He's also a soloist on his own. He's a wonderful artist, a wonderful musician, and a real mensch. So, Stefan, you are in Berlin. Have you started activities again in Berlin? How is the situation with the virus for you guys?
First of all, thank you for having me, because I feel very honored to be in your little sort of like interview lineup of fantastic people. Yes, we are going to play again end of the month. We do have permission to perform again, but actually, of course, with a COVID distance in the strings is going to be 1.50 meters. In the winds is going to be 2 meters. And if you make a circle around you 2 meters, that means, of course, we are not going to play Mahler 5, Bruckner 3. We do play Beethoven 6, Schumann 1. Every program is going to be short, 1-hour programs. We are only allowed, I think, about 500 people in the hall instead of 2,500. So that's about, just scratching 20%. So it's going to be really a very different experience. But we
started that? Have you started that? Have you started
No,
that?
we will start end of the month. End of August, where our season will start, because we are on holidays now. After having holidays for so long, we had holidays. But we actually will restart end of August.
And so you have, since the start of the virus, you have not had any concerts so far?
We have had concerts, but just online.
So
we actually played real concerts,
and
but no audience.
Social distance.
Social distance. Absolutely social distance.
I mean, is the fact you have so much space and distance in between the musician and, I guess, with the conductor, how is that affecting the playing, if in any way?
It is far away. We did just play big chamber music things like Grand Partita, Mozart, just for winds, and a lot of string things. So yes, and you're spread up over the whole stage. At the beginning, they actually said it should be 5 meters for the wind players. So there was Mahler 4 on the program, and they played this Mahler 4 version of the Schoenberg student that only have 3 winds, no horn. I was really, 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 really embarrassed to hear my solos on the piano and clarinet, but they had like 5 meters around. And so if you have 50 meters for 3 wind players, that is, I mean, no.
The distance, I mean, I see that, that in the opera world, if a singer is 5 meters more, it changes. There is such a delay, and music is all about this connection between space and time. And so you can't make music together. So do you feel comfortable with the new rules of 2 meters and 1.50 meters for
No, of course not. We don't feel comfortable, but luckily, Kirill Petrenko is like giving very clear signs, and you can really like follow him very clearly. I also did some chamber music, and we said like, oh yes, we do a horn quartet, but then you have like 8 meters from the first to the fourth, and you feel like on the first horn you lead, but it always feels like everybody is like dragging, and it's like and of course they try to listen, but you understand like don't listen. Just look, and we just do it on visual things. Right.
And it's amazing for me how the acoustics can influence tremendously an interpretation. And I have been in situations like this where you have groups that are further away, and the less people hear themselves, the less music there is. And it becomes an incredible, difficult thing of dragging. Let's actually, before we go back to the virus, you have been playing in the Pitin Pirate, correct?
Yes, and actually, when I was 19, I started in Frankfurt in the opera. And I was there for 6 years, so I do know a bit of opera.
But
and I've been in Bayreuth in the pit.
the Pitin Pirate, the acoustics also are kind of weird. And from my colleague conductors, the connection with the stage has some kind of strange delays. How is it in the Pitin Pirate? What do? You just
the thing is, the Pitin Pirate is like so low. It has these giant steps going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. So, and you have like it's a big, enormous room then, because there's so much space. It's very loud in there, and everybody plays very loud, right? Because the pit is completely covered from the audience. You have this like lid going from the audience, and you have another lid coming from the stage. So what happens actually is that all the sound goes to the back of the stage and bounces back from there. So, but the singers, that means for the singers, they actually don't have to shout. They hear the orchestra very loud, but actually they're always on top of it. Great. So if you sit in the audience, it's like you don't know where the sound comes from. It comes from up there, from behind the singers, but it is great. It's fantastic.
But for you as a player, how does that change the way you have to adjust, or you just play within the people you hear next to you? Can you hear the double basses, the first violin?
Actually, you could hear the other instruments quite well, but actually, I think no one really played ever piano in there. Or let's say they play piano, but never like you have these like 3 pianos or whatever. No, you could, because if like Lohengrin starts, you could hear. You wouldn't realize where the sound comes from in the audience. It's great. It's fantastic.
Right. But look at this, ladies and gentlemen, the face of a horn player when he says, I don't have to play piano, although you can play beautiful pianissimi. Let's go back to the virus. We are all living this week by week, and a lot of things have been canceled. As you know, in the US, the situation is somehow more difficult, at least in the arts, because a lot of things have been canceled, and the arts are supported mostly by private funding and corporate funding, but not by governments, cities. And so it makes things even more precarious. In Europe, we have all of these fundings, and we can play in halls that are at a 25% capacity. What do you think is going to be the few months effect, few years effect, long-term effect of this pandemic on our industry, at least in Europe?
I'm hoping we don't have so much effect on that.
Right.
Maybe for us, it's now the time that we realize a bit like, oh, this flying around the earth and all this, like, what actually do I want to do?
Right.
So this is for me a bit like, I have to stay at home for 4 months. I couldn't play. I couldn't, I like to travel. I like to be all around the world. But now I realize actually it's quite nice at home too. What can we do at home? But also like, what do we have to do? What are the real necessary things for myself artistically? Or is there a way like to reduce the things a bit and say, being honest, I don't need this. I don't need this. I really want to do this. And this gave, for example, the whole thing gave me now, and I was talking about this for a long time with Paavo Järvi, because he has this fantastic conducting class in Estonia, and it actually happened in June. So I was very, 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 in July, I was very, very lucky, and I called him, I think, in April and said, is that going to happen? Because I wanted to be like a part of it for a couple of years, and we always talked about it. It never happened because I was always busy all the summer. And then suddenly I was like, I could actually do it. So I went there and had a conducting class. He said, like, okay, if you play a horn concerto, and then you get the conducting class for free. So, okay, that's a nice deal. Let's do that.
Wow. But so wait, you were conducting? Yes, you got
absolutely.
The class as a conductor. Whoa. And how did that feel?
I've done it before, but I was actually
because I've been trying for years to have you actually do more than a play conduct, but do, you know, some conducting with some of our orchestras, because obviously being a horn player, you have this kind of arrogancy that you need on the podium, or, you know, confidence that you need on
let's say fearless. Let's say fearless,
yes,
not
fearless.
arrogance, fearless.
Yeah, and you have musical ideas, and it's so, you know, the politics of conducting, you understand that, or the psychology. So are you starting a new career? How did it feel? I mean, what was the feeling?
I'm definitely not starting a new career, because I did already a couple of things I did, and I usually do them, like, for example, in Tokyo at the university, or at ANAM, so Australian National Academy of Music. I did like Stravinsky Wind Symphony and all these you know, things that are related to my instrument. So I did conduct brass concerts, but it was just very interesting to see what you actually can achieve with very little movements, and just to learn that, oh, you don't actually have to beat the pulse, because the musicians don't need it. And that's what I feel, of course, and I know that. But if someone tells you, you realize, that is a different thing.
Right.
So it is, and then you just
it changed your perspective on that. It confirmed a lot of things. I mean, you know, talking about this, it takes years, I think, for a conductor to learn to do less and less and less and less, and to conduct with the ears, and just knowing that the music is not in the hands. The music is not even in the instruments of the players. It's something that's developing in the middle of everybody. And you're just confirming where the music, but if you hear well, if you feel well, just being there and projecting mentally this, it's going to happen. The problem is that for young conductors, and most conductors, and you have seen a lot of conductors who are very agile, but a lot of who are awkward, it's what they are trying to do that gets in the way of their musicianship or their internal rhythm. If they don't have internal rhythm, they can have the most beautiful gestic. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. No.
It's not
if
going.
They, yeah, I would say like two things. It's if they don't have internal rhythm, like permanently, really, no, this is going there. This is bum 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 bum. If you have that like subdivision always in your brain, that works. The other thing is, I think, if you know where you want to phrase to, the phrasing. I think the phrasing, if you can show a phrasing as a conductor, that is great.
And actually, to show a phrasing as a conductor, you need to feel that phrasing. And then with time, you learn not to get in the way of that phrasing, and it's just happening. And that's where the acoustics, so we're circling back, that are extremely important. But you and I have also seen, you know, conductors who are actually very awkward in their movements, but the music making is so obvious and that it works, and people follow exactly because of what you are talking about. We know it's going to go there and it goes there together. And other people who have those impeccable technique, but in the end, it becomes a pain.
Nothing's happening.
And nothing's happening, and then the ensemble fades. So as a horn player, as the first horn, you are the first one to kind of give the vibe of the orchestra in that relationship with the conductor. And those relationships, as we all know, you know, at the Paris Opera, when in the pit, when the conductor enters, you know, they say, okay, here's the bull. The idea being that the bull is going to die at the end, you know.
That's very French. I think this is very French.
Well, German orchestras are not known for being necessarily
the most kind ones.
The kindest, you know. I mean, and so let's try to navigate this a little, so we can talk about this for the people listening. Let's start by asking you, what do you do if you are in a situation where you have a conductor that really you feel doesn't help you, or doesn't help the orchestra, or doesn't convey what needs to be conveyed?
Look at the concertmaster.
Look at the
Yeah, I think it must be very sad for some conductors that they feel after like a couple of minutes already that the orchestra never looks at him, but always looks at the guy sitting on the first desk or first violins. because he will give every cue. He will be there. He, you know, usually these people are amazing, and they just lead the musical thing then. Because if it is really, I mean, I'm not talking about conductors that we have, because in Berlin actually we never have.
Yeah.
But yes, I know from operas. I remember opera performances where it happened that someone who has never really conducted the Fidelio came in and did his first Fidelios. And so, oh, this is going to be really bad. So everybody tries to, you know, stick together, look at the concertmaster, and you see someone leading with his violin, like, yeah.
Right. Are you one of those musicians that could just talk back to conductors? Have you been in that situation?
Not so much. I am always pro conductor, because I know how much work it is to actually work a score. And now even more than before. It's like, oh shit, I totally forgot. And where is that oboe? The oboe didn't play. No, I have to give it up. Oh no, too late. Okay, good. And you think like, oh, that always has to go, you know, everything in your brain has to be there at the same time. While if you read the score, you are too late. So I was not well enough prepared. Good, great. But seeing the work behind it is actually it is a big task, and I'm so happy that we have people that do that, because it is it's a different preparation than practicing a couple of hours the horn is easy.
But you know, as a conductor, we're going to move on from this because we don't want to expose too much. But as a conductor, it's not only, you know, the kind of question, you know, well, are you subdividing or not, which means I can't understand what you're doing. But it's also, you have kind of a body language from the orchestra. You have a vibe for the orchestra. And also you feel really if the orchestra is responding or not. If they are resisting, which is kind of rare that an orchestra would say, okay, he's doing this, we're going to go the other way. Or if they're just, as you say, doing it on their own, and then all of a sudden you don't do anything. Are you yourself conscious of that solitude of the conductor? And is there, for instance, in an orchestra like the Berlin Phil, is there very rapidly, even at that level, a consensus on, okay, let's go entirely with that conductor, or well, let's be careful, let's not be pushed in territories we don't want to go?
No, I have to say that, you know, I was the chairman of our orchestra for a couple of years. Right. And I have to say that we always try to be with the conductor. We always try our best. Sometimes it really, very seldom it happens that people jump in, and you have the feeling, oh, that is not really well prepared.
Right.
Because now coming to our orchestra is like a bit like, okay, you know, Emmanuel, you know, Albrecht Meyer, all these people, and you have to tell them now how to play Brahms' Second Symphony. Right. And so like, what can I like give them to be with me and not getting bored after rehearsal hour number one. And sort of like, I think the preparation of like how to go into this is you have to be like prepared on different ways. I think when Kirill Petrenko came to one of his first programs after he was elected as principal conductor, he said like, oh, I actually have prepared 3 different approaches how these rehearsals are going to be. I'm very happy that I can stay with number 1.
Right.
But sort of like he had imagined already like, if this goes bad, I have to do this. And like really like, yeah.
Right. And I think it's one of the things I learned very quickly as a conductor. You cannot actually put in a can what you plan to say. It's totally dialectical. It's a conversation that's constantly evolving according to what's happening. And an orchestra is going to feel right away if a conductor is just saying this bar 21 because he thought when he was preparing the score that he would say that bar 21. What brought you to the horn?
Actually, I didn't start with a horn. I was playing viola because I have 2 brothers. We played violin, viola, and cello, so perfect string trio. And when I was 10 or 9, someone gave me one of these little hunting horns, and I was running around with that, like playing on it, and I could get the most notes out of it. And then I went to listen to a concert. I grew up in Essen, so in the Ruhr Valley, like industrial thing. And in this church, there was every year the famous horn player Hermann Baumann gave a Christmas concert with organ. And I was listening and said, like, this
very famous horn player, just
very famous, yeah. The most famous in the time, yeah. And I was listening to this and oh, this actually does sound much better than my viola playing.
Oops.
I still have a viola. That's I didn't stop the viola. I was still going on up to when I was 15. So I was like doing both at the same time for a couple of years. But then I actually found
for you that you were going to be a professional musician. When did that evolve?
15.
Yeah. Okay.
14, 15. Yeah. I didn't actually finish high school. Because in Germany, you can start studying after 10 years of school. You can start studying arts or music. And I was not very good in school. I actually have no high school degree. I don't have any study degrees because then I was like, I didn't want to go to the army. So I was studying. They couldn't take me out of the studies. But then I said, oh, I have to really get a nice position very, very quickly. So when I was 19, I went to Frankfurt Opera as a principal horn player. So, and then from there, they couldn't like get me out of that job. That was, I was very lucky.
But and so that's the first job you auditioned for, the Frankfurt Opera?
It was, yeah, absolutely.
And you got the first one position right away?
No. They asked me. I was in the audition, and the first round Strauss concerto was fine, and then I had to orchestra excerpts and things like this. And after round 3, I was like, oh, that's not going to happen because it got worse and worse. And then, but they then asked me to play a week of opera sight reading, and opera in Germany is still like a repertoire system.
Sure.
So, and a week in the opera meant like, oh, you have a Rossini opera, Il Turco in Italia, you have Der Freischütz, you have Parzival, you have like, and after Aida and something else. Bohème, I think. Oh God, Bohème. I think my Bohème notes are still hanging there somewhere. If you listen to Bohème, and that was times where I bought all these records. I still have them on record because CDs were too expensive, and you couldn't download the scores. Of course, like now it's easy. IMSLP has everything, and you can download your music easy. No, that was like a hardcore. Get to the library, pick a score. Buy a recording and do that. And
you did your week, and all of a sudden you aced it. I mean, you survived.
And then after a week, they said, "Okay, he did a couple of mistakes, but he's promising."
Okay. And how long were you in Frankfurt then?
I was there for 6 years. I had a year in the Orchestra Nice, Orchestra Philharmonic de Nice. Yes.
Right.
Because the opera burned down.
We actually met in Nice, and you were part of the jury for one audition for horn in Nice. Right. And I was on that jury too, actually. I was very young. Yes. And then what happened that the jury... Funny. There was nobody good enough, actually. And then you got the job.
Yeah, I actually, that was the time the opera in Frankfurt was, it did burn down.
Right.
Like the year before. So there was nothing really going on. We played in the speaking theater beside, terrible acoustic, very, very small pit. And I said like, oh, this opportunity came out. And they said like, oh, do you want to play something? It's like, oh, absolutely.
Right.
Lovely, fantastic time. Nice city, nice people. I really enjoyed my year there. Actually, what also happened is that I said at some point, like, do you want to stay here? And yeah, it's nice. If you like, living and cooking and all these things. And I was really thinking about it and I said, I don't want to stay here, but also maybe I don't want to go back to Frankfurt. I want to, to go on. And I actually practiced more than I've ever practiced in my life in that year in Nice, even if it was nice and sunny. And
because you were thinking of auditioning
going
for
on.
the next step,
going on. Yeah.
And so that's actually amazing. I mean, how some musicians in orchestra, their level starts going down the day after the audition, and other musicians, they get better and better with time. And I guess the demands on auditions at that very high level for any kind of players it's so unforgivable. It's just about, it needs to be, there is no way you can do that without working your as much as you can. Between Frankfurt and Nice, so totally different cultures, even in the orchestra and so on. How did you fit in with the French nonchalance that was in Nice? That was a good orchestra. It's still a good orchestra, but it was a very good orchestra, and was a médecin who was the Pierre Médecin, who was the
Pierre Médecin, yes.
And he loved opera. It was quite a personality, but he loved opera. And his brother was the mayor of the city. And
not at that time. He was already in power.
He was really gone.
Because,
the opera was well founded.
Problem, I think.
Yes. But the opera was very well founded. And so how did you compare the two mentalities of the two, Frankfurt and Nice?
Oh, that was very, very, very different, because I think in Frankfurt I had a very nice orchestra. I mean, Nice was a very nice orchestra too, like the members of the orchestra.
Right.
But Pierre Médecin, the intendant, or the director, was like, oh, he was frightening. He could I never had a bad experience with him, luckily, but he was, for example, he was like asking the horn section after Fidelio, where there were like one or two little splits in the area. He asked all the horn section into his office and played them the recording and said, what was that? What happened? And say, oh, no, you really, And that's like, it's a bit like in France, you want to have a bit of a director who does things like this. You want this confrontation, so you also can speak back a bit. This is something I wasn't so much used to. It's like, the ranting about, this director, but he's terrible, but he's also like, you knew he was good for the opera house.
He was,
but this dictatorship, it was like, it was there, and they sort of like enjoyed it. I had the feeling.
Yeah, it was a game. It was a game. I think there was a proportion of masochism and sadism involved, and I mean, maybe the results would have been even more spectacular with other techniques, but it worked for that time. I mean, there were
absolutely fantastic singers,
musicians, world class singers. So, but both, I mean, in Nice there is also a symphonic season in the orchestra, and I suppose in Frankfurt too you would do a few symphony concerts. So you were basically, you grew professionally first in the operatic world. How was it to move to the symphonic? And I suppose the next step is you audition for Berlin, correct? And you get Berlin.
Next step was, and that time was Radio Symphonieorchester, so Deutsche Symphonieorchester now. I went there for a year. So that was the next step. That was interesting,
but
because
to do symphonic that much.
Just symphonic. That was,
Right.
And I have to say, like, I was happy to have the experience of 7 years, not only playing opera, but we had a symphonic concert every month in Frankfurt, and Nice had even more, I think. So, I was also like playing as an extra player a lot in Südwestfunk, Rundfunk, and all these. So for me, there was nothing really, that wasn't a big change. The big change actually was that from the opera, where you have to sit in the orchestra pit, you're now exposed on stage, and actually the concerts are shorter.
Right, that's true.
Opera can be long.
Yeah, no, that's true. And so being on stage was, I mean, if you do a Mahler 5, I mean, this is like, how did you negotiate that? Or, but I guess if you play Così, even though you are hidden, you're just so scared to death, because, I mean, the Mozart opera is
There's little,
you know you're going to be
little
called in
horn
the
bits that are, there's
right,
always little horn bits in every opera.
So is it what you were looking for, being on stage, being like this, or is it because, you know, the progression, if you are the best horn player, you need to go to those symphony orchestras, or maybe you could go, you know, I mean,
yeah, what would be the task to go to the Metropolitan Opera?
Exactly.
But you're still in the pit. So yes, of course, you wanted to get, you wanted to proceed. I love the opera. I mean, we only play one opera a year, and I love it.
Right.
I would like. They're very.
I don't know one great musician at the highest level in the symphonic field who doesn't love opera. I mean, I think everything goes back to that, and then that division between. Of course, there are differences. Of course, there are things that you need to sometimes approach with a different strategy and even a different mind. But it's music. And
if it's music, and something happens, there's always a little mistake or something happens on the stage. You have to adjust. You have to listen while you play. It's like in the Frankfurt Symphonic, you can easily, if you start there, you can easily fall into like, oh, I look who's conducting, and that's going to work. But the best orchestras are always like these ones that sort of like experience to listen to each other and do a big chamber music thing. And in the opera, you have to, if the choir gets later and later, and if you don't adjust, it will be just a big car accident.
Okay, so you are in you then audition to the Berlin Phil, or they courted you, or what happened?
No. I actually did a couple of auditions that I didn't get to. So it's not that I auditioned for this and then I got that and then I auditioned for that. No, I did actually do more auditions, and there were a couple of that where I didn't play well. But then I was in Deutsche Symphonieorchester, and the position in the Philharmonie came up, and I was really doubting if I should do it, because I knew like, oh, this is going to be quite stressful. And we were talking about early 90s, so 93. And the attitude in the orchestra was a bit different too. So they were like, they were really like grown up people. So saying like, oh, you have to, if I don't do this audition now, will I regret it? Because there's only one chance, like every, whatever, 15 years, 20 years, or 25 years.
Right.
And that chance came up. And then I decided, and I didn't play, they had an audition, the first audition, they didn't take anybody. And I decided then, I should do it. I just should do it. But I was actually never like a solo player. I never won a competition. My highest prize was the third prize in Magnerkirchen competition.
Congratulations.
So that was after the time I was practicing a lot in Nice, actually.
Right.
It was the same week when I won the Deutsche Symphonieorchester position. But I have to say, I was never like a solo player or soloist. I always felt like I'm a very good orchestra player. The solo stuff only came like 15 years ago, maybe more and more.
So how did that audition go? I mean, what happened? What was the process then?
The process at that time was very funny. So the first round, I think, was like a Strauss concerto, but usually you only play parts of it, because the orchestra doesn't have time to listen to all of it.
No.
Yes, you have, but there I had to play the whole thing, all of it. Yeah, everybody, all Strauss concerto from.
Did you know you had to play it whole, or
no?
Or you expecting them
I was
to
waiting.
stop?
I was expecting to stop at some point. No, they didn't. No. So like, 15, 20 minutes. That's fine for each. We were only 7, I think, 6 or 7 invited horn players. Principal horn is anyway. We have a lot of open positions in. Always, there's a lot of like demand on principal horns. I don't know. People are not fearless enough. But I have to say, like, then after the first round, I think we were 3 in the second round with orchestra excerpts. So we had to play orchestra excerpts. But at that time, all 3 of us had to sit on the stage while the other 2, so one was playing and the other 2 were listening. And the orchestra was like, the whole orchestra was in the hall.
Why?
Was listening. I think just to make you, I don't know, look like a wanker. I don't know. It's really like, oh no, don't. Yeah. So we had to sit, but actually it was quite nice for me because I could, first of all, I was like listening to what the others did, and there, of course, then one played the first excerpt, and then they changed the order, and so it was like it was really weird. But I could hear that you know, I could realize, oh, actually these guys, I can, you know, maybe I can do this better there, and I can do this better there. So you can like really listen to what they do. Think, oh, I'm not that bad.
You're right. And so you got the job.
Yeah.
And I mean, how does that feel? Because you're saying, okay, I have to try this. It's probably my only chance in my career, but were you secretly hoping for it? Yes.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
Unsecretly hoping for it. No, after I've made the decision to play for it, then I was thinking like, oh, I should get it.
Right. But so then I guess even in the 90s, in the time you said all your colleagues were real grown-ups, very serious people. Did you feel welcome right away? And I mean, there is something, you know, for the people who are not musicians themselves, there is something so exposed in that first horn position. You know, an oboe can have a few notes, scratchy, miss an entrance. A horn, you know, it's just you're walking on a very, very dangerous path, and you can fail any second. So I mean, when you are playing with probably the best orchestra in the world, in the most exposed position, and you just won the audition, what's your feeling every time you go in a rehearsal? What's your feeling every time you go?
At that time, fear. I was frightened. I was frightened of a lot of people. I was scared, absolutely, so scared. But then, for example, I can just give you an example. What happened was like in my second or third week, there was a Bruckner 8 program with Klaus Tenstedt at that time.
Amazing.
But he was always, but he didn't come because he was always sick, and he couldn't conduct. So there's a program change to Beethoven 4 and Sinfonia Domestica, like on the weekend before the first rehearsal. And it's like, I've never played Sinfonia Domestica, but I know there's some very, very exposed, very high notes.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of playing, and so I was like, again, you know, I felt a bit like in the opera. The good thing is that I had this school of opera playing, like, you adjust. If you adjust, and if you look at the conductor, you're fine. And that's actually also in the time with Claudio about it was very helpful, because I was always like really trying to focus while reading the music, or while even side reading, to the same time like look at the conductor, because that is just gives them confidence that you are there, and it gives you the confidence that you are playing in the right time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did it go, the Domestica? Went okay?
I think it went quite okay. I can't actually remember it. It was like it's a big book for horn, means like it has 12 or 14 pages.
There is something about horn players that, you know, we're joking, but I think really it is so risky. It is so exposed that you need to have that fearless attitude. And probably like all of us, you know, I mean, somehow as a conductor, you need to have that too, or you need to not show your insecurities. Otherwise, everybody is going to go into it, and you lose your position. I have actually known a fantastic horn player, and who never missed a note. And then he did a Mozart concerto as a soloist with the orchestra, and he didn't do well. And from that day, he in all his solos, and it didn't go.
Oh, really?
How do you have to mentally prepare yourself? I mean, you must have cracked a note a few times in a concert.
There's still some.
So what do you say?
They're still somewhere out there. They're still flying. I did. No, I think fearless is one thing. A short memory is very good.
Yeah.
Don't Don't
dwell on it.
Crack a note, and you think about it, the next note will be gone too. So just go on. And everybody says, oh, he cracked it on, that's fine, it's a home player. So that's a good excuse. So just go with that, stay with that. No, I think if you know what you do, and this is, I think, maybe the same with opera singers. It's like, if you have a good technique and you feel something is going wrong, you still can like you can work it out somehow.
Right.
Even if you have a pimple on the lip or just a herpes or whatever. But if you know what you do, so you can cover it. And the good thing is, when I was starting, I was so young, and it was in the pit, it was not in the symphony. So, and if you are there, if you like try to focus, if you look at the conductor, they will like support you
Yes.
Much more. And in the pit, you can, in the orchestra pit, if something happens, it's not that obvious as on a symphonic stage.
Right. And so, but I think what you say about the short memories is so true. You just need to move on, and if you have the technique, you can just say, okay, I know the next note.
It's just about music. It's music.
Right.
We do play. It's not. Yeah, you don't do a surgery.
It's amazing actually how much wrong notes are insignificant if there is a musical sort in general, and they become, I can't stand this if
Absolutely.
It's mechanical playing. You have such an experience. Are you teaching too now?
I'm teaching, and I'm actually, this is when I was like in these last couple of months, I was opening my teaching experience on the internet. So I was teaching through a channel called Play with a Pro, because they
Yes.
have adjusted the microphones and everything.
Better sound.
But so it was really nice to have a couple of students I've never seen in my life, just in the internet. Fantastic. I'm having a couple of students, but very few, because I don't, I was traveling so much. I don't have the time to have beginning students, because they especially in horn, there's a lot of technique and a lot of like, if you don't really make it correct at the beginning, when they are 18, 19, 20, then it is really hard to teach when they're 23, 24.
You need to unteach before you teach. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but I do enjoy teaching a couple of students.
Right, and so you think that's a future path? I mean, what's to settle down?
I like to teach horn, but it's teaching the horn. So we don't have the biggest repertoire. So I hope my path is going a bit further, and I do. What I do at the moment is like, yes, I go to universities, I teach the horn, but I also want to do a brass concert or wind and brass concert. Just do programming things, finding a repertoire and rehearse with chamber music. This is actually what I really love to do.
Right.
Just intonation, all these things like balance, like, where do you want to go? What do you want to do here as a chamber music group?
Right. And as you said, the horn repertoire in itself has its limitation in terms of amount of pieces, but you actually you have commissioned pieces, and you are playing a lot of contemporary music. And what's your approach to this? I mean, is it because, I mean, there is something in classical music. We are, all the critics and the musicologue says, you need to do more contemporary music. And then even in, France or Germany, it's sometimes hard to sell this to the audience. And we need to be smart in the way we defend this. And, in the time of Mozart, there were hundreds of composers, and it's gone. And everybody expects now that every contemporary piece is going to be the new Mozart piece. So what's your commitment to contemporary music?
No, very interesting that you said that, because I was just listening to a podcast, and actually Mendelssohn was the first one who actually did Matthäus Passion,
right,
80 years after Bach died.
Yes,
for the first time.
Yes,
so he was the one who like put programs together, because before, concerts were always contemporary concerts.
Right.
He was the first one who was like, this has been a success at that time.
It's actually interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Leipzig, that was it. But I grew up, and I was 17, I joined the Junge Deutsche Philharmonie, German student orchestra, and they had at that time just developed the Ensemble Modern. And I was playing when I was 17 or 18, the first time in the Ensemble Modern, and I kept playing even when I was in Frankfurt in the opera, because they were based in Frankfurt. I kept playing with the ensemble for all the years when I was in Frankfurt, more or less. And like every month, maybe every second month, they didn't have a fixed horn, like a fixed position. They had a fixed horn position, but it was like, at that time, no one had it. And so I did all the Frank Zappa things and everything, like all these really funny and interesting rehearsals, even if they were like 10-hour rehearsals per day or something. But that actually did open my mind for everything else in classical music, because you had, as you said, like this subdivision rhythm things. If you don't have that in contemporary music, you are lost. If you can't count in 5 or 7 over 2 beats, you're lost. You will just lose it.
Right.
So I established a quite good connection to people, and I'm always looking for new horn concertos. So the next one's coming up in January. I mean, the last thing I've actually played was the premiere in this January was Hans Abrahamson's horn concerto, and I did concerts in Japan, and then I flew to New Zealand. I actually flew from northern Italy beginning of February to Tokyo, and then to New Zealand, and then to Australia. So if I would have had it, I would have become this super spreader. Luckily, I was not having it.
It could have been a silent spreader. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
That's
no, but back to this, I think we have an obligation to find more repertoire and to find composers who want to write for the horn and write us nice concertos.
Right.
Not nice. Nice is the wrong word.
Right. But what I found, I mean, interesting, source provoking, or what I find is, the same way having an experience in the operatic repertoire helps you in the symphonic repertoire and vice versa. I find that having to approach new scores that have absolutely no tradition and nothing, and deal with extremely complex rhythm is going to help you when you have to do a Beethoven symphony later.
I think so, absolutely.
The fact you need to have an approach on the text that is in front of you, and says, what do I do with this? And there is no Tenstedt, Karajan.
There's no recording.
There is nobody. You have to figure it out. Then you go back to Beethoven 4 and you say, well, actually, what do I see here? And you start asking yourself questions. And in Brahms and Beethoven, you have sometimes those hidden complex rhythms that all of a sudden you're more comfortable with, and that you can really, instead of playing the beat, you play the Miola in the syncopation, and so on and so on. So I find that very, very rich. How do you, when you have a complex score that you have to prepare, and you are very, very busy, and you still have to play aloud? I mean, I remember we did together a concert in Bratislava. I think it was one of the Strauss concerti. And then you were preparing a contemporary piece. And between the dress rehearsal, where you were playing the Strauss concerto, and the evening performance, you were practicing downstairs a very complex piece. And I was worried, but you aced it in the evening. How do you pace yourself, and what do you do when you approach a very complex score that you have to play in 3 weeks or something like that?
Yeah, 3 weeks. Like for me, it's more like months usually. Like,
okay.
I do need time. I need to practice the technical parts, of course. As a horn player, the thing is, if you have like 2 valves, 3 valves, 4 valves, but of course you have to hear the intervals before you play them. Right. Otherwise you're lost. It's a bit like singing. If you don't hear them, you can't play them, because these are just helping you a bit. Yeah. But if you just press them down, that doesn't work.
The piano key is going to be the right key, but if you don't know what you blow, it's not going to come out. Right.
So I really have to get this like sort of like things into my ears, into my brain, and I'm now, and maybe I'm approaching now differently. I'm now doing it more in phrasings and in sentences, something that I can imagine. And of course there's like bits that you have to just practice technically, and this is the first step. But the second step is then immediately go, where does it relate to, and what's happening in the orchestra? What can I hear there, and where can I find notes and things? So it's complex, but I need time. I'm quite slow.
And the lips. I mean, I think we're exactly the same age, which we're not going to reveal. Your lips, you need to pace that too. So you have something, that yourself. You say, oh, Stefan, just time to watch TV or take a book or whatever.
It's mostly actually the opposite.
Oh, the more you work, yeah.
Yeah, put the book away. Yeah,
right.
I practice now, especially in Corona crisis.
Okay.
Because of course, what happens is when you play in a big symphony orchestra, you have a lot of power because you play on a very high level of sound, on a very high level and low level, like piano to fortissimo. Right. You have all these. If I try to practice these, I think my neighbors will be like not very delighted about that. So yes, I do have to practice, but it's not easy to practice on that level. That meaning is like if I have a solo concert, I'm always prepared because I've played the weeks before in the orchestra, because right. I have the physical power here and the body and the breathing. And now I feel like, I have to really, these 4 or 5 months, I haven't done anything. I mean, I've practiced, but it's not the same, absolutely not the same. So for me, actually, the best preparation to be playing is just playing a lot, right. Physically. Yeah, right. I can't save. When you say yes, we have played the Strauss concerto in the morning and in the evening. That is twice half an hour. So right. Usually I practice like 3 to 4 hours, and it's like, oh, that is not enough just to play that. This is no. So, and I know where to go. I know this is the experience, of course, of age, right. That you do know how much you can practice. And right. If you have a 3 hours break, then it's going to be fine.
So, and now that you're starting a stellar conductor career, you will have still to practice in the meantime, because I guess if you don't play for a few weeks, you need a lot of...
No.
That never happened to you, yeah.
No, I was thinking like, these 4 months, like March, April,
right.
May, June, July, 5 months now, is like, I've never in my life since I was like 10, 12, 13, had that much of a break of no performances.
Right.
There's something very unique, and I was like, this feels very different. Like, and now I have to get back to, I have to really get back in shape.
You have to get back in shape. And you are going, I believe you are going to Lucerne. Is that top secret?
No, that's not top secret. It will be televised. So this is, everybody can see it. That's great. No, because the Lucerne Festival, they had a problem. I think their principal Hans couldn't do this week. And the Lucerne Festival actually usually is a couple of weeks long, and they only do like 10 days. And we play 2 Beethoven symphonies and a bit of a piano concerto with Herbert Blomstedt and Martha Argerich. So not bad. They both live in Switzerland, so that was easy for them. It's easy for them to get there. But I'm very much looking forward. And then we start the season end of the month, so in 2.5 weeks.
Right, and in a way that you know what you love and what is essential when it might be taken away from you, and in a way that is a positive consequence and effect of this terrible pandemic. Stefan, we are at the end of our talk, but if people want to listen to Stefan, you can listen to the upcoming concerts with the Lucerne Festival. They can go to the digital hall of the Berlin Phil, which really laid the ground for what a digital concert could be. An extraordinary musician, a wonderful human being, and you have your plane to catch to Lucerne, so we let you go. Thank you so much for the conversation, Stefan. You take care.
I'm very honored to be here. Thank you, Emmanuel, for letting me be a guest of yours.
Thank you.